If you have ever flown to Australia, you may have noticed something very different the moment you arrive. Before you can even think about leaving the airport or checking into your hotel, you are immediately met by one of the strictest biosecurity systems in the world. It is not just a routine security check, and it is not only about weapons or illegal substances. Australia pays extraordinary attention to biological threats, and among the things that are inspected most carefully, there is one item that sounds completely ordinary, but is treated as extremely sensitive: fruit. An apple, a mango, or even a small slice of orange left in your bag can cause serious trouble. To many travelers, that sounds absurd. How can something as harmless as fruit create such a problem? Why would Australia ban it so strictly, and why are the penalties so severe? The answer becomes clear only when you understand how unusual Australia really is, both geographically and biologically, and how much the country has to lose if even a small threat enters from the outside. In Australia, bringing fruit into the country without declaring it is considered a serious offense. If you forget to declare something as small as an apple, or even a pastry containing fruit filling or jam, you can be fined immediately. In many cases, the on-the-spot penalty is around $1,500 to $2,000. This happens more often than many people imagine. Travelers are sometimes shocked to discover that one small snack or one forgotten piece of food in a backpack can suddenly become a legal issue. And if the situation is judged to be intentional, meaning the authorities think you deliberately tried to conceal it, the punishment can become much more severe. The fine can rise to roughly $8,000 to $10,000. In more serious cases, if the matter is taken to court, the total penalty can reach $40,000 or even more. In other words, one banana, one mango, or one seemingly insignificant piece of fruit can end up costing an amount comparable to a car. That alone tells you something important. Australia does not see this as a trivial rule. From the country's point of view, this is a matter of national protection. To understand why, the first thing we need to look at is the map. Australia is not just another large country. It is a continent-sized landmass that has been separated from the rest of the world for millions of years. Long ago, it split away and developed in relative isolation. Because of that isolation, life in Australia evolved very differently from life elsewhere. Many of its most famous animals, such as kangaroos and koalas, are found nowhere else on Earth. The same is true for many of its plants and natural systems. Over an extremely long period of time, Australia's ecosystem developed according to its own rules, with limited outside contact, and without many of the biological pressures that shaped ecosystems on other continents. At first, that sounds like a good thing. It sounds special, even fortunate, but there is a hidden weakness in that kind of isolation. When species and environments develop without outside threats for millions of years, they often do not build strong defenses against foreign pests, diseases, or invasive organisms. A simple way to imagine this is to think of something growing inside a greenhouse. Inside, conditions are stable, protected, and controlled. What grows there may be healthy, but it is not necessarily prepared for shocks from outside. Australia, in many ways, is like that greenhouse. Its ecosystem is rich, unique, and beautiful, but it is also unusually vulnerable. A threat that might be manageable somewhere else can become a disaster in a place that has never encountered it before. That is why Australia has to be extremely careful with anything that could carry hidden biological risks, even things that look harmless to ordinary people. And fruit is one of the clearest examples. Fruit is not just food, it can also be a carrier. It can contain insect eggs, fungal spores, bacteria, viruses, or other organisms that are invisible to the human eye. It may look completely fresh and clean on the outside, but still contains something dangerous inside. Once that enters the country, the problem is no longer just one person carrying one item. The concern is what might happen after that fruit is eaten, discarded, or exposed to the environment. This matters even more because Australia is not only protecting its wildlife and natural landscapes, it is also protecting a massive agricultural economy. Many people outside the country associate Australia mainly with deserts, beaches, kangaroos, and wide open spaces. But agriculture is one of the country's most important industries. Australia is one of the world's major exporters of agricultural products and earns tens of billions of dollars every year from this sector. It exports fruits such as apples, grapes, oranges, and mangoes, as well as meat including beef and lamb, along with grains and many other products. Large farming regions such as Queensland and Victoria are home to enormous agricultural operations that stretch across vast distances. Some orchards and farms are so large that they can be bigger than entire towns. This system only works because Australia has built a reputation for being clean, safe, and free from many of the pests and diseases that threaten agriculture elsewhere. If that reputation is damaged, the economic consequences can be enormous. That is why even one new pest can be a major threat. Once a harmful organism enters an agricultural system, it does not stay small for long. It can spread from one orchard to another, from one region to the next, and before long, the issue becomes national rather than local. The result is not only crop damage. Other countries may respond by restricting or banning imports from Australia. That means farmers do not just lose a harvest, they can lose entire markets. They can lose years of trade relationships and billions of dollars in export value. So when Australia protects its farms from disease, it is not just protecting fruit trees or fields, it is protecting jobs, trade, income, and a major part of the national economy. Among the many threats Australia fears, one of the most notorious is the fruit fly. To an ordinary traveler, a fruit fly might sound insignificant, almost laughable. But for agriculture, it can be devastating. Fruit flies lay eggs directly inside fruit. When those eggs hatch, the larvae begin feeding from the inside out. What makes them especially dangerous is that the fruit may still look completely normal from the outside. It can appear fresh, colorful, and ready to sell, while the inside is already ruined. Even worse, fruit flies reproduce very quickly. A small number entering the country can multiply into thousands in a short time. And in a place where there may not be enough natural predators to keep them under control, they can spread rapidly through orchards and farming regions. Imagine a fruit-growing area worth billions of dollars suddenly facing contamination. The produce can no longer be sold normally. Exports are suspended. Farmers lose income. The government is forced to step in with quarantine zones, pest eradication programs, inspections, and emergency control measures. The cost can rise into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And the most frightening part is that all of this can begin with something as small as one piece of imported fruit. The danger becomes even greater when we remember that not all biological threats are visible. In fact, some of the worst ones are the ones nobody can see. A fruit might carry a fungal disease, a plant virus, or harmful bacteria without showing any obvious sign. To a person packing a suitcase, it may seem completely safe, but once it is introduced into the environment, those hidden organisms can spread by wind, water, soil, or insects. Australia's native plants and crops may have little or no resistance to them. That is why the country takes such a hard line. It is easier and cheaper to prevent the entry of a threat than to fight a full-scale outbreak later. And Australia knows this from painful experience, because it has already suffered biological disasters caused by introduced species in the past. One of the most famous examples is the rabbit invasion. In the 19th century, European settlers brought rabbits to Australia, partly for hunting and familiar recreation. At first, this seemed harmless. There were only a small number of animals. But the Australian environment suited them, and there were no natural predators strong enough to keep their numbers under control. As a result, the rabbit population exploded. Within a few decades, rabbits were spreading across enormous parts of the continent. Their numbers reached into the hundreds of millions. They consumed huge amounts of vegetation, damaged crops, stripped the land bare, and contributed to severe soil erosion. Areas that had once supported farming and native ecosystems were left degraded. The problem became so serious that Australia had to spend enormous sums of money trying to contain it. Fences stretching for thousands of kilometers were built. Biological controls were introduced, and major efforts continued for decades. Even then, the rabbit problem was never completely erased. It became one of the most famous examples in the world of how a small introduction can grow into a national ecological crisis. And rabbits were not the only lesson. Another major case involved the prickly pear cactus. It was originally introduced for practical and decorative reasons, including fencing. But once again, what seemed harmless at the beginning became disastrous later. Without natural predators to keep it in check, the cactus spread across millions of hectares of land. Vast areas became overrun, and some agricultural regions became nearly unusable. At its worst, the infestation covered more than 20 million hectares. Controlling it required another long and costly effort, including the introduction of biological agents to reduce its spread. These experiences taught Australia an extremely expensive lesson. nature does not forgive careless mistakes. A species, a pest, a fungus, or a pathogen placed in the wrong environment can trigger damage on a national scale. That is the real reason Australia is so strict today. The country has learned again and again that prevention is far easier than repair. Once an invasive species or agricultural disease becomes established, it can take years, decades, or even generations to control. The costs are not only financial, the damage can spread to ecosystems, farmland, rural communities, and international trade. This is why Australia's border rules are designed to stop risk at the earliest possible moment. When travelers arrive, they are required to declare what they are carrying. Detection dogs are trained to sniff out fruit and other biological materials, even when they are hidden inside luggage. Inspection officers can open bags, examine packages, and remove anything that poses a risk. To a traveler, this can feel stressful or excessive. But from Australia's perspective, this is not about making life difficult for visitors. It is about defending the country against threats that may look tiny at first, but can become enormous later. So, in Australia, fruit is never treated as just food. For one individual, an apple or mango may seem harmless, but for a country with a highly vulnerable ecosystem and a massive agricultural economy, it can represent something much larger. It can be the beginning of a pest outbreak, an agricultural crisis, export restrictions, rising costs, and economic losses worth hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. That is why Australia chooses the strictest option: stop the danger before it has any chance to begin. When you look at it that way, the rule no longer seems unreasonable. It becomes perfectly logical. In Australia, an apple is never just an apple. It is a potential biological risk, and that is exactly why the country refuses to take chances with it.